High Archon Vexthor of the Zoraxian Collective stood motionless, his crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns that expressed his utter disbelief. The holographic display before him showed what the humans called their quantum research facility, and it was, by Zoraxian standards, absolutely barbaric. "They're using silicon-based computational systems," he transmitted to his council, his crystalline resonance frequencies conveying both disgust and fascination. "And their quantum entanglement experiments are conducted at room temperature." First observer Nyxis, her obsidian-like form pulsing with amber energy patterns, responded with her own frequencies of amusement. "The humans appear to compensate for their technological limitations with what they call innovative workarounds. Most disturbing. The Zoraxians had achieved quantum mastery before their sun had completed its first rotation around the galactic core. Their civilization had evolved from pure energy into crystalline forms, making them living quantum computers. They had expected Earth's first contact to be a momentous occasion. Instead, they found themselves watching Commander Juniper Wells and her team at the Global Science Initiative conducting quantum experiments with what appeared to be modified microwave ovens and repurposed satellite dishes. They achieved quantum teleportation using modified kitchen appliances, Nyxis noted, her crystalline structure vibrating with what could only be described as nervous laughter. "It shouldn't work. It cannot work. Yet somehow." "It works," Vexthor finished, his normally perfect crystalline structure showing slight imperfections, the Zoraxian equivalent of a headache. The humans' approach to science was chaotic, messy, and completely at odds with the precise, methodical processes the Zoraxians had refined over millions of years. Yet somehow, these primitive beings had managed to achieve results that, while crude, were undeniably effective. Commander Wells, unaware of the Zoraxians' observation, was currently explaining to her team why they should try routing quantum signals through a modified coffee maker. Her chief engineer, Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, wasn't arguing about whether it would work, only about which brand of coffee maker would be most suitable. "The quantum harmonics of a standard drip coffee maker are actually quite similar to our containment field frequencies," Wells was saying, sketching diagrams on a whiteboard with the enthusiasm of someone who didn't know their ideas should be impossible. "If we modify the heating element and add some superconducting materials." The Zoraxian Council watched in horror as the humans proceeded to rebuild their quantum communication array using parts from what appeared to be a kitchen appliance warehouse. It violated every principle of proper scientific methodology the Zoraxians held sacred. But then the alert came. The quantum sensors that monitored the stability of spacetime throughout the galaxy detected something unprecedented, a cascade failure in the quantum fabric itself. The calculations showed that within 30 standard cycles, the failure would spread across 3 galactic arms, potentially destabilizing the quantum fields that held reality together. The Zoraxians' perfect crystalline computers ran the numbers billions of times. The results were always the same. Catastrophe was imminent, and their refined, elegant solutions couldn't stop it. "High Archon," first observer Nyxis transmitted hesitantly, her frequency patterns showing clear distress at what she was about to suggest. "Perhaps we should consult the humans." Vexthor's crystalline structure nearly shattered at the suggestion. "The beings who think quantum entanglement can be achieved with kitchen appliances." "The beings who achieved quantum entanglement with kitchen appliances," Nyxis corrected. "Their methods are unorthodox, but they have a peculiar way of seeing solutions where we see only problems." The High Archon watched as Commander Wells and her team celebrated their successful quantum transmission by ordering pizza and arguing about toppings. These were the beings they would have to trust with the fate of 3 galactic arms. "Send the transmission," Vexthor finally ordered, his crystalline form dimming slightly in resignation. "But mark my words, first observer, if the humans suggest solving this crisis with more kitchen appliances, I will personally revert to my energy form in protest." As the quantum transmission was sent to Earth, No one in the Zoraxian Council could have predicted that Commander Wells' first response would be, "Have you tried turning the quantum fabric off and on again?" It was the beginning of a collaboration that would change the galaxy's understanding of both humanity and the nature of innovation itself. The humans were about to show the galaxy that sometimes the most elegant solution wasn't the most refined. It was the one that worked, even if it meant breaking every rule in the quantum physics handbook. The Global Science Initiative's main conference room had never hosted such an unusual gathering. Commander Juniper Wells stood before a whiteboard covered in equations and crude drawings, while a holographic projection of the crystalline Zoraxian Council hovered above the conference table. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez was attempting to explain their proposed solution while munching on a breakfast burrito, much to the visible distress of High Archon Vexther. "So basically," Rodriguez said between bites, "you're telling us the quantum fabric of spacetime is unraveling like a sweater." The Zoraxian's crystalline forms flickered in what might have been offense at the oversimplification. "The cascade failure in the quantum substrate is far more complex than your primitive textile analogy suggests," Vexther transmitted. "Our most advanced quantum matrices have calculated." "Yeah, but it's basically like a sweater," Rodriguez interrupted, grabbing a marker. "And when you get a snag in a sweater, what's the first thing you do?" "Call your mother and apologize for ruining it," suggested Dr. Prisha Patel, the team's theoretical physicist, without looking up from her tablet. Commander Wells snapped her fingers. "No, you stop it from spreading, you tie it off." She turned to the Zoraxians. "Have you tried containing the quantum disturbance at its source, like a quarantine?" The crystalline beings vibrated in what the humans had learned was their equivalent of exasperation. "Of course we attempted containment. Our quantum fields are precise, perfect." "That's probably the problem," Wells interrupted, earning a chorus of crystalline discord. "You're trying to be too perfect. Sometimes you need a bit of chaos to fight chaos." She grabbed a marker and began drawing what looked like a cat's cradle game on the whiteboard. "What if we treated the quantum fabric like a net instead of a solid surface? Instead of trying to patch the hole, we redistribute the strain across multiple points." First observer Nixus's form pulsed with interest. "Elaborate on this? Net theory." Dr. Patel jumped up, nearly spilling her coffee. "Oh, like when you're moving a heavy piece of furniture, you don't lift it from one point, you get multiple people to distribute the weight." The Zoraxians watched in bewilderment as the humans began acting out their theory using rubber bands and paper clips. Dr. Rodriguez had fashioned a crude model using drinking straws and string, while Commander Wells was programming a simulation using what appeared to be modified video game physics engine. "This is unprecedented," transmitted one of the Zoraxian Council members. "They're using gaming software to model quantum mechanics." "The physics engine is actually pretty good," Wells defended, not looking up from her screen. "We just had to add a few extra dimensions and adjust for quantum uncertainty. Plus, the graphics card was cheaper than a quantum computer." The next few hours were a blur of activity that defied every principle of proper scientific methodology. The humans bounced ideas off each other in what they called a brainstorming session, which seemed to involve equal parts theoretical physics and pop culture references. They ordered in Chinese food and covered another whiteboard with equations written in multiple colors because, as Dr. Rodriguez put it, "It helps us think better when it's pretty." But then something extraordinary happened. The simulation worked. The humans' crude model, built with gaming software and enhanced with what they called quantum fuzzy logic, showed a potential solution. By treating the quantum fabric like an interconnected web rather than a uniform field, they could theoretically redistribute the strain of the cascade failure across multiple points in space-time, preventing any one area from unraveling completely. "It's like spreading out in quicksand," Wells explained to the stunned Zoraxian Council. "The more you concentrate force in one spot, the faster you sink, but if you spread out, you can stay on top." "This is absurd," Vexther transmitted, his crystalline structure showing signs of stress fractures. "You cannot compare quantum mechanics to quicksand." "Why not?" Dr. Patel challenged, pushing up her glasses. Both involve the interaction of particles in a semi-stable matrix affected by external forces. The principles of distribution and equilibrium apply in both cases. The Zeraxians were forced to admit that while the humans' methodology was unorthodox, their math was sound. The solution wasn't elegant or refined, but according to every simulation, it would work. "There's just one catch," Commander Wells added, her expression growing serious. "We'll need to modify the quantum containment fields across all affected sectors simultaneously, and to do that," she grinned, "we're going to need a lot of coffee makers." The crystalline discord that followed her statement was so intense it cracked 3 computer screens. But as the simulations continued to run, showing positive results across all scenarios, the Zeraxians were faced with an uncomfortable reality. They were going to have to trust the fate of 3 galactic arms to a species that thought quantum physics could be modeled using video game software. "Very well," Vexler transmitted finally, his crystalline form dimming in resignation. "Proceed with your coffee maker solution. But please," he added, his frequency patterns conveying deep distress, "stop explaining your methodology. My crystalline structure can't take any more of your analogies." As the human team celebrated with high fives and began ordering more coffee makers in bulk, the Zeraxians were left to contemplate a disturbing possibility. Perhaps the universe had a sense of humor after all. The Galactic Science Academy's Grand Hall had never witnessed such a spectacle. Hundreds of different species gathered to watch what the humans called a tech demo, though calling it, that was like calling a supernova a light show. Representatives from 30 advanced civilizations watched in various states of horror and fascination as Commander Wells' team prepared to implement their solution to the quantum cascade crisis. "As you can see," Dr. Rodriguez explained, gesturing to what looked like a mad scientist's garage sale, "we've modified approximately 10,000 standard coffee makers into quantum field manipulators." He paused to sip from a cup that said, "Physics makes me percolate." The irony is not lost on us. The arthropodian delegates clicked their mandibles in distress. "You intend to save the quantum fabric of space-time with beverage preparation devices." "Modified beverage preparation devices," Dr. Patel corrected, adjusting complex arrays of equipment that somehow incorporated both quantum sensors and coffee filters. "The heating elements provide an excellent base for generating controlled quantum field disruptions, and the timing mechanisms were surprisingly easy to sync across light years." The mechanoid consensus, usually the most stoic of all galactic species, was displaying error messages across their optical arrays. Query: how did you achieve quantum synchronization across such vast distances? "Oh, that was easy," Commander Wells said, scrolling through what appeared to be a social media app on her tablet. "We created a quantum-linked group chat." The entire hall fell silent, save for the sound of High Archon Vexler's crystalline structure creaking under stress. "You networked quantum fields through a chat application," the mechanoid representative's voice modulator nearly shorted out. "Well, yeah," Wells shrugged. "How else were we going to coordinate 10,000 coffee makers across 3 galactic arms? Email." Before anyone could process this fundamental violation of proper quantum mechanics, Dr. Rodriguez called out, "2 minutes to quantum redistribution. Everyone grab something stable to hold on to. This might get a bit wobbly." Wobbly, the word rippled through the translator matrices of 100 species. "Define wobbly in quantum mechanical terms." "You know," Dr. Patel made a wiggling motion with her hand. "Wobbly, like reality doing the cha-cha." The human team's casual approach to what might be the most significant quantum manipulation in galactic history was causing various forms of distress among the assembled species. The ethereal collective, beings of pure thought, were developing the equivalent of migraines. The silicon harmonics were experiencing spontaneous binary errors. 30 seconds, Wells called out, typing something on her phone. "Everyone in the quantum chat say ready when you're set." On screens around the hall, status updates began appearing from human teams stationed across the affected sectors. "Ready in Sector 7, coffee's great here." "Sector 12 ready to rock." Sector 15 standing by. Anyone want to order pizza after? The Xeraxian Council watched in collective horror as the fate of 3 galactic arms was coordinated through what appeared to be casual conversation and emoji reactions. Beginning quantum redistribution in 3, 2, 1, Commander Wells pressed what was unmistakably a coffee maker's brew button. Let's make some quantum coffee. What followed defied description in any known language. The quantum fabric of spacetime rippled, flexed, and did indeed become rather wobbly. The modified coffee makers hummed in perfect harmony across light years of space, their jerry-rigged quantum fields weaving a new pattern in reality itself. Through their quantum chat, the human teams coordinated with the precision of a symphony orchestra, if that orchestra was playing jazz while skydiving. They adjusted quantum fields on the fly, redistributed energy loads with casual efficiency, and somehow kept the entire operation running while sharing memes about quantum physics. The strain is redistributing, Dr. Patel announced, watching readings on a device that appeared to be part quantum scanner and part tablet computer. The cascade is slowing, stopping, revering. The assembled galactic representatives watched in stunned silence as the humans' impossible solution actually worked. The quantum fabric stabilized, the cascade failure was contained, and reality itself seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Well, Commander Wells said, checking her readings one last time, I guess you could say we filtered out that problem. She held up her coffee cup with a grin. The groans from her team mixed with the various sounds of disbelief from the alien delegates. High Archon Vexther's crystalline form had developed what looked suspiciously like stress fractures. I have a query, the mechanoid representative said after a long moment of processing. If the solution was this, simple, why did none of our civilizations discover it? Dr. Patel smiled as she powered down her equipment. Sometimes the best solution isn't the most elegant one. Sometimes it's the one crazy enough to work. As the human team began discussing where to order celebration pizza, the gathered species of the galaxy were forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. Perhaps their pursuit of perfection had become a limitation. The humans, with their chaos and coffee makers, had seen a solution precisely because they weren't bound by conventional wisdom. The Galactic Science Academy would never be quite the same after that day. Some say you can still hear echoes of the collective existential crisis that rippled through the advanced species. But as Commander Wells pointed out while ordering extra cheese on her pizza, sometimes a little existential crisis was good for the scientific soul. In the aftermath of what galactic historians would later call the Great Coffee Maker Crisis, the Xeraxian Council faced an unprecedented situation. Their most revered theoretical physicist, Crystal Sage Zenith, had requested to study human scientific methodology. Even more shocking was their chosen location, a university cafeteria on Earth. I still don't understand, High Archon Vexther transmitted to the sage's crystalline form, which was currently perched next to a vending machine. Why must you observe them here among the chaos and processed sustenance? Because, Zenith replied, their crystalline facets reflecting the fluorescent lighting, this is where they think. Indeed, Commander Wells and her team were currently sprawled across several cafeteria tables, surrounded by empty coffee cups, half-eaten sandwiches, and holographic projections of their latest project. They were attempting to solve another impossible problem, designing a faster-than-light communication system that didn't require quantum entanglement. What if, Dr. Rodriguez said, balancing a pencil on his nose, we treated spacetime like a rubber sheet? Already tried that, Dr. Patel mumbled around a mouthful of ramen noodles. Remember the slingshot incident? Oh right, that's why we're banned from using rubber bands in the quantum lab. He paused, then sat up suddenly. Wait, what if we treated it like a slinky instead? Crystal Sage Zenith watched in fascination as the humans began passing a plastic slinky back and forth, using it to model complex spacetime interactions. Their crystalline sensors recorded everything, trying to understand how such apparent chaos could lead to breakthrough insights. They appear to require constant energy input, Zenith noted, referring to the endless stream of coffee and snacks. Yet their energy efficiency in terms of scientific output is remarkable. Commander Wells was now bouncing a ball against the wall, each bounce accompanied by a burst of inspiration. If we think of faster-than-light communication like skipping stones on a pond. But the pond is space-time itself, Dr. Patel finished, nearly knocking over her ramen in excitement. The Zeraxians watched as the humans began modeling their theory using paper airplanes, a bowl of water, and what appeared to be a modified microwave. Their approach violated every principle of proper scientific methodology, yet their results were undeniable. "I believe I'm beginning to understand," Zenith transmitted to Vexther. "Their strength isn't in their technology or even their knowledge. It's in their ability to see connections where we see only chaos." As if to prove their point, Dr. Rodriguez had just solved a complex quantum mathematics problem while playing what he called quantum hopscotch in the cafeteria. The solution came to him mid-hop. "They don't just think outside the box," Zenith continued, their crystalline structure pulsing with excitement. "They don't even acknowledge the box exists. To them, every object is a potential scientific instrument, every game a possible model for understanding the universe." The breakthrough came when Commander Wells, watching a student's paper airplane glide across the cafeteria, had an epiphany about wave propagation in space-time. Within hours, the team had developed a prototype faster-than-light communication device using principles so fundamental that every advanced species had overlooked them. "It's beautiful," Zenith transmitted, their crystalline form vibrating with emotion. "They succeed not despite their chaos, but because of it. Their minds are quantum computers of a different sort, constantly existing in multiple states of possibility, until observation collapses them into brilliant solutions." The Zeraxian Council was forced to revise their understanding of human intelligence. They had been measuring it against their own standards of logical progression and methodical advancement. But human intelligence was something else entirely, a kind of controlled chaos that produced results precisely because it didn't follow the expected paths. "We have been asking the wrong question," Zenith concluded, watching as the human team celebrated their latest breakthrough with an impromptu dance party in the cafeteria. "We kept asking how they achieve such results with primitive methods. We should have been asking what we might achieve if we learned to think more like them." Commander Wells approached the crystalline observers, holding out a cup of coffee. "Want to join our quantum dance party? We just figured out how to use dance moves to explain 11-dimensional space-time folding." The sight of a crystal sage attempting to learn the quantum shuffle would have once been considered an affront to the dignity of their species. But as Zenith's crystalline form swayed to the rhythm, their sensors detected patterns in the dancers' movements that perfectly mapped to their theoretical models. "Perhaps," Vexther transmitted, watching their most respected scientist attempt something called the wave, "we have been too rigid in our definition of scientific advancement." "That's the spirit," Wells grinned, demonstrating how the electric slide could be used to explain quantum field propagation. "Sometimes you have to shake things up to see what falls into place." As the cafeteria became an unlikely fusion of scientific breakthrough and dance floor, the Zeraxians realized that humanity's greatest contribution to galactic science might not be their solutions, but their way of finding them. In a universe that often demanded creative answers to impossible problems, the ability to turn chaos into clarity was perhaps the most advanced technology of all. One standard galactic year after the coffee maker crisis, the annual Symposium of Advanced Sciences looked very different from its previous iterations. The traditionally austere halls of the Galactic Science Academy now featured what humans called brainstorming corners, complete with whiteboards, various toys labeled as thinking tools, and yes, coffee makers. High Archon Vexther, his crystalline form now showing subtle iridescent patterns that would have been considered undignified a year ago, addressed the assembled representatives of the galaxy's most advanced species. "When we first encountered humans," he transmitted, his frequencies carrying notes of amusement that would have once been unthinkable, We categorized them as a primitive species who had achieved spaceflight through what we considered dangerous improvisation. We were wrong. Not about the dangerous improvisation, that part was accurate, but about what it meant. The hall, once dominated by rigid rows of seated delegates, now featured clusters of various species engaged in what humans called interactive learning. In one corner, a group of mechanoids was attempting to understand human humor through a carefully controlled experiment involving rubber chickens. In another, members of the ethereal collective were using finger paintings to visualize quantum probability fields. Commander Wells, now serving as Earth's representative to the Galactic Science Council, was demonstrating to a group of young Zoraxian scientists how to use juggling to understand orbital mechanics. Dr. Rodriguez had somehow convinced a team of arthropodian mathematicians to use interpretive dance to model complex equations. The humans, Vexter continued, have taught us something we had forgotten in our pursuit of advancement. They showed us that progress doesn't always follow a straight line. Sometimes it hopscotches, sometimes it dances, sometimes it takes a coffee break and comes back with an idea that changes everything. Dr. Patel was currently leading a workshop titled Kitchen Physics, Finding Laboratory Equipment in Unexpected Places. The sight of dignified alien scientists experimenting with kitchen utensils would have once caused a diplomatic incident. Now, it was considered cutting-edge research methodology. We had achieved perfection in our calculations, Crystal Sage Zenith added, their form shifting through rainbow hues as they spoke, a new form of expression they had learned from studying human art. But the humans showed us that sometimes perfection is the enemy of progress. Their chaos contains its own kind of order, their apparent randomness its own logic. The evidence was undeniable. Since adopting what was now called the human perspective principle, scientific advancement across the galaxy had accelerated dramatically. The mechanoids had developed a new form of artificial intelligence after watching human children play make-believe. The ethereal collective had revolutionized their understanding of consciousness while participating in a human game night. But perhaps most importantly, Vexter transmitted, they taught us to laugh. As if on cue, a small explosion echoed from one of the research labs, followed by Commander Wells' voice. "It's okay. That was supposed to happen, mostly." The various species in the hall, who would once have reacted with alarm, now shared what each of their cultures considered equivalent to laughter. Even the Zoraxians had developed their own version, a harmonic crystalline chiming that filled the air with musical notes. "We have learned," Vexter concluded, "that there is more than one path to understanding. The humans climb trees to study gravity, they play games to understand quantum mechanics, they dance to explore dimensional physics. And while their methods may seem chaotic, their results speak for themselves." The latest example of human innovation stood as proof, a new form of interstellar drive that had been conceived during what the humans called a pajama party brainstorming session. It violated 17 laws of physics as the galaxy had understood them, but it worked better than anything developed through conventional means. "The galaxy has changed," Crystal Sage Zenith observed, watching a group of young scientists from various species engaged in what appeared to be a highly modified version of charades to explain string theory. "We are no longer bound by our traditional methods. We have learned to embrace possibility in all its forms." Commander Wells stepped up to the podium, her uniform slightly singed from the recent explosion, but her smile undimmed. "When we first met, you called us primitive because we achieved spaceflight using what you considered the equivalent of duct tape and optimism. But here's the thing about duct tape. It's flexible, adaptable, and it holds things together in unexpected ways, just like human creativity." She gestured to the hall, where species that had once regarded each other with formal distance were now collaborating, playing, and learning together. "We didn't just solve a quantum crisis with coffee makers. We showed the galaxy that sometimes the best way forward is to step sideways, do a little dance, and look at things from a new angle." As the symposium continued, with its mixture of serious scientific discourse and what humans called structured silliness, the truth was clear. The galaxy hadn't just accepted human methods, it had evolved because of them. In learning to embrace chaos while seeking order, to find wisdom in play, and to see possibility in the improbable, the advanced species of the galaxy had discovered something greater than perfection. They had discovered progress. And somewhere, in a university cafeteria on Earth, a new group of human scientists was probably solving the mysteries of the universe while playing with their food. The galaxy wouldn't have it any other way.